For 10 years, the Greeks fought outside the walls of Troy for one woman, Helen. Heroes died, thousands of soldiers never came home, and an entire city was destroyed. But there's just one problem. According to one of the ancient world's most famous historians, Helen wasn't in Troy, she was in Egypt. And the Trojans may have spent years telling the Greeks exactly that. Nobody believed them. So what if one of history's most famous wars was fought for a woman who wasn't even there? But where did this story come from? Not from Homer. It comes from Herodotus, writing centuries after the Trojan War. Herodotus travelled through Egypt, where he questioned Egyptian priests about Helen, and they gave him a very different story. According to their account, Paris did leave Sparta with Helen, but on the journey home, violent winds drove his ships off course and south toward Egypt. There, some of Paris's own servants deserted him and revealed what he had done. The matter eventually reached the Egyptian ruler Herodotus calls Proteus. And Proteus made a remarkable decision. Paris could leave, Helen could not. He kept Helen and the stolen wealth in Egypt, intending to return them to Menelaus. Paris was ordered out of the country, and when he eventually sailed toward Troy, Helen wasn't with him. Then the Greek fleet arrived at Troy. They wanted Helen back, and according to Herodotus, the Trojans gave them an extraordinary answer. We don't have her. Helen, they insisted, was in Egypt. So was the treasure Paris had taken from Sparta. Herodotus says the Trojans repeated this claim again and again, but the Greeks didn't believe them. They thought Troy was lying, and so the siege began. Think about what that means. If Herodotus's version is true, thousands of men were fighting outside Troy, demanding the return of a woman who wasn't inside the city. And the Trojans had no way to prove it. The war continued. Men died. Troy was eventually taken. And then, according to Herodotus, something extraordinary happened. The Greeks searched the conquered city, and Helen wasn't there. Only then did they finally believe what the Trojans had been telling them. Helen was in Egypt, so Menelaus did something the Greeks could have done before Troy was destroyed. He sailed south to find her. Menelaus finally reached Egypt. He sailed up the Nile to Memphis, and there, according to Herodotus, he found Helen, alive, unharmed, and the treasure Paris had taken from Sparta was returned as well. Think about what that means. Years of war, countless lives lost, Troy destroyed. And according to this version of the story, Helen had been in Egypt. But Menelaus' story doesn't end there. When he tried to leave Egypt, bad weather trapped his ships. And Herodotus says Menelaus did something horrific. He seized 2 Egyptian children and sacrificed them. When the Egyptians discovered what he'd done, they pursued him. Menelaus fled with his ships toward Libya. But now comes the question that really matters. Why did Herodotus believe this story? He was writing centuries after the Trojan War. He wasn't an eyewitness, yet he thought the Egyptian version made more sense. His reasoning was simple. If Helen had really been inside Troy, why wouldn't the Trojans give her back? Priam was watching his people die. His own sons were dying. His city was being destroyed. All so Paris could keep another man's wife? Herodotus didn't believe it. And Paris wasn't even heir to Troy. Hector was, older, more respected, and the man expected to inherit Priam's throne. Herodotus reasoned that Hector would not have accepted his brother, bringing catastrophe upon their family and all of Troy. So Herodotus reached his conclusion. The Trojans weren't refusing to return Helen. They couldn't, because according to the story he believed, Helen was never in Troy. And Herodotus went even further. He believed the gods allowed Troy to be destroyed anyway, to show that terrible wrongdoing brings terrible punishment. Which leaves one question after more than 2,000 years. Was Helen of Troy ever actually in Troy? If history like this deserves a second look, like the video and subscribe to Dust and Empires for more.